Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Let's see. There we are. There we are. Okay, sound works. There we are. Okay, sound works. Okay. I just wanted to test it out real quick. Yeah, welcome to anyone watching this. This live stream is a bit spontaneous because Wargaming have just dropped the test server 1.19 with the Chinese heavy tanks, and I thought because I have Friday evening off, just came back from work, it's the perfect time to make a quick video, talk about the Chinese heavy tanks, and why not just combine it in a little live stream. I just read the news that Henry Cavill is going to be making a live action series of Warhammer 40k, which is really crazy because I think, like a lot of other people out there, um, he is a huge Warhammer 40k fan, at least a Warhammer fan, I think, and so am I. So that sounds pretty damn interesting. Just so you guys know. But either way, this video right here, it's not too important if no one joins the live stream. This is going to be a bit of a preview video so that I don't have to make it afterwards. I can just make it in the live stream and we can take a quick look at the Chinese tanks. So, first news is that the Chinese new heavy tank line is in the game and they start off from the Type 58. So if anyone is interested in going down this line, start getting your get your Type 58 out of the garage, start playing this vehicle, get your crew members up to date because you're going to be able to go to the BZ 58 from the Type 58. Now, it's a bit weird. It's only 56,000 experience, so you should have that quite quickly. And it's actually, it's like okay in terms of having several different, well, modules right here. It doesn't look like it's going to be a huge grind, the vehicle itself, to get it like fully upgraded. You have one gun, one 85mm gun, you have a 100mm gun, one extra turret, and two engines. That's basically it. But one very interesting thing is that they actually went ahead and they cancelled all of the derp guns, at least in the first iteration of this test server. It might be that Wargaming is going against the idea of introducing derp guns with this additional, with this additional mechanic, which is the rocket boosters, and well, that's a bit special. It's very interesting to see that the derp guns are actually not a part of these vehicles. You can see the tier 9, the tier 10, they all have big guns, but none of them have the big derp guns. So that is a bit weird, but it still has like 90 millimeters of penetration with the 152 millimeter gun on the BZ-75. So let's take a quick look how much experience you'll need to get to the vehicle. We're going to talk about the fully the fully stacked up prices as well. So I'm just going to go and grab my trusty calculator so we can go through it real quick. So for the very first tank, you're going to have like 56,000 experience for the BZ-58. But if you want to have everything fully unlocked on the vehicle, it's going to cost you at least, let's see, I'm adding it up on my calculator right now. It's going to be about exactly 83,000 experience that you have to earn in the BZ-58 to get all of the things. And to be fair, I think you will be getting all of the modules. I don't think that anyone is going to be skipping right through the engine unless you want to immediately go to the tier 10. If you immediately want to go to the tier 10, going through the engine and then free XPing your way through the next vehicle is probably going to be the easiest step. Now, keep in mind, I do have a lot of blueprints. I have 104 China blueprints and 209 USSR blueprints, so if you add that up together, I should have more than enough to go through at least 2 or 3 vehicles of the tech tree. But yeah, for the tier 7, it's going to be 83,000 or 84,000 experience to get it fully upgraded. For the tier 8, since you only have one gun, it's probably going to be less. It's that's quite interesting. It's actually going to be less experience that you're going to need for the tier 8 to get it fully upgraded. So the tier 8 is going to set you back 55,260 experience. I think the tier 8 looks really interesting, especially with the armor at the front, because it's like this really interesting design where the armor is like riffled, like small waves that are protruding out of the vehicle itself. And yeah, the tier 9, what is the tier 9 going to cost us? Since it's just one gun, it's actually quite cheap to research a lot of the modules. And it looks like it's not going to be too bad if you compare it to some other vehicles. So it's going to be, in total, 110,000 experience for the fully fledged out or fully upgraded tier 9 BZ68. So generally speaking, it actually doesn't seem to be that horrible if we think about it. So yeah, interesting to see. Very interesting to see that the Chinese heavy tanks do not have a lot of, like, they don't need a lot of experience to get fully upgraded. There are tanks that are a lot worse in that regard. I think the Chinese medium tanks are a prime example for that, because you actually have to go through quite a few different steps and it's quite expensive. As you can see, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 modules that you have to go through on the tier 8 just to be able to go to the WZ-120. That doesn't even include the 2 engines, the radio, and the tracks. And on the tier 9, it gets even worse. So yeah, looks like the Chinese heavy tanks are actually quite easy to research. The most experience you'll need is on the tier 9, and on the tier 7, the tier 8 is actually quite cheap because you only have one gun on like all of the vehicles. So it's kind of weird that they haven't added the second guns into the test server, but I think Wargaming might be reconsidering adding them into the game at all, and I think they're going ahead. They're just kind of canceling the high explosive guns that they wanted to add. It might have been like really toxic, or it might have been like really unusable because, well, who knows? I think it wasn't a good addition to the game. I think Wargaming noticed that it was probably not a very good addition to the game. So let's buy all of the vehicles, let's get everything fully unlocked, and then we're going to jump into a couple of games on at least the tier 10, and if we can, also the tier 9 and maybe the tier 8. This is not going to be a very long video. I don't want to make this a very long one. If anyone kind of jumps into the live stream, well, we're going to see what we're going to be doing. But other than that, I just kind of want to test out the BZ75. I want to test out the gun. I want to see how fast these vehicles are with the turbo or with the jet boosters, and I want to see if they are actually playable or not. So we're just going to try out several things, and we're just going to get everything fully upgraded so I can make some videos afterwards when I have the time. It's a bit of a bad time right now because I'm working a lot. So yeah, making videos is a bit difficult at the moment, so just have to take whatever time I can take and basically do my best. So yeah, we have all of the Chinese heavy tanks now in the garage. We still have to equip them with crew and with the obvious equipments and, well, other goodies as well. Ammo needs to go on it. We need to have some consumables as well. So we just want to have China and we just want to have the heavy tanks. I think we're going to start with the tier 10 and I want to try this one out. So let's take a quick look at the vehicle itself before we go into any further kind of categories and take a look at the characteristics. It actually looks really weird. It looks like a modern tank because at the front you basically have these crazy angles that are like kind of flat on some parts, but also really angled on other sides. But at the same time, like the turret is extremely flat from the side, but from the front, it looks like a really sturdy turret. It does have a cupola on the left and the right, and the big question is going to be if these cupolas are actually heavily armored or if these cupolas are like really easily penetrated by maybe heat shells or high damaging APCR shells as well. That could be the case. So we're just going to add some basic consumables on the vehicle. We're going to add some ammunition as well. I want to have a couple of high explosive shells just in case because it does have 90 millimeters of penetration. But remember, this is not the big gun. This is just a very standard 152 millimeter gun. Now that standard is obviously in quotation marks because having a 152 millimeter gun is anything but standard. But I think a lot more heavy tanks at tier 10 have like gotten that huge caliber upgrade that the Chinese tank here has as well. We're gonna add just like a crew member real quick. We're actually going to be like boosting the crew members at least to a level 3 crew so that it's kind of fair because it's the test server. Everything that does happen here is not like a real representation of the live server. Just so you know, everything that happens on here is basically just, well, it's basically just people maxing out everything on their vehicles to try out like what the maximum kind of vehicle can do or like the highest stats can achieve in the game. So we're just going to boost all of the crew members so that we have at least 3 crews or 3 skills. I think 3 skills is a good starting point. We're not going to go excessively high like 7 or 8 skills, but 3 skills is probably the way to go. So what do we want? We definitely want to have intuition because we want to be able to exchange the AP shell just in case we want to hit a target that has a lot of armor with the heat shell. We definitely want to improve the traverse time right there. So that's going to be a nice feature to have. We want to improve the turret rotation as well so that we have the least amount of dispersion. The vehicle is probably going to have like a lot of dispersion. Or actually, it's not too bad. 0.38. You can actually work with that. That's really not bad, to be fair. So let me just increase the view range a bit because it's going to be really awkward if the tank is like extremely blind. It's not a lot of fun when your vehicle is blind on the battlefield. So let me go with just... Now this is a 4 crew skill or 4 skill crew, but I think it's fine. We're just going to leave it at that. We're going to add one more thing here, and it's going to be repairs just in case, because why the hell not? Repairs are always nice. How about reduced off-road? Ground resistance is also very nice. Okay. Now let's take a quick look at the characteristics of the vehicle and what the tank is capable of doing. So 650 alpha damage, that is the norm nowadays on the heavy tanks. It used to be 750, but 650 is the best we get. We have 258 millimeters of penetration with the AP shell. So that's actually okay. It does have decent shell velocity, 1,150 meters per second, so you don't have to aim too much. You don't have to lead too much with your shots. Doesn't look to be that bad. What about the heat shells? The heat shells have 319 millimeters of penetration, which is not that great, to be fair. 319 millimeters is, well, it's okay, but it's going to it's going to be a bit difficult with certain tanks. I can say that much already. 950 meters per second shell velocity on the heat shell. It's not too bad, but it's not that great either, so I think it's normal. It's about okay. Shell velocity on the high explosive shell, sadly, is not as good as on the AP shell. 860 meters per second, but you have 90 millimeters of penetration, which is really, really nice to have. So yeah, rate of fire is pretty atrocious. 16-second reload time to get the shell out of the vehicle. So it's going to take quite a while to get rounds into the target. So yeah, we're going to go with premium consumable because that's going to boost it. Yeah, gun traverse speed is also pretty bad. 26.73 degrees per second. So the turret is not going to be turning very well. It does have 8 degrees of gun depression, but it's a far cry from the 10 degrees of gun depression that we first heard of, I think. But do correct me if anyone is watching. The 8 degrees of gun depression, I think I had 10 degrees in my mind. But still, Chinese heavy tank with turret armor and gun depression, it's kind of scary. 20 degrees of gun elevation, aim time is okay, we can work with that. Dispersion values are actually quite good, considering that this tank, well, was supposed to have like a really big gun. The dispersion values on this 152mm gun that you use like a standard 152 is not too bad, but I would have been really interested to see what the dispersion values were like on the howitzer gun, like the 180mm gun that they wanted to add. So, okay, survivability, the tank is really heavily armored. You can see the turret is heavily armored, but it also has like these flat spots. It has like 2 cupolas that seem to be a weak spot. You have a lower plate that is angled quite aggressively, but I think you're going to be able to go through it if it doesn't angle a bit more. Other than that, it's quite flat. It's the flattest surface. And then the rest of the hull armor at the front is basically this V shape, but it reminds me of the IS-7, but it's a bit worse in my opinion because it's angled, so it's not going to be like super easy to go right through there. If you want to shoot this tank from the front, you probably should go right through the tracks if you have the shot and not try to aim at the weird pike at the front because it's like still angled, so chances of going through are not going to be very high. So you just have to kind of look and see where you aim at. 2500 HP, that's the norm for tier 10 heavy tanks. Hull armor is quite hefty, 200mm at the front, 110 on the side, 60 at the back, so high explosive up the ass is going to be doing the trick on this vehicle. But other than that, it's quite heavily armored. Even the side turret is 165mm thick, but it's really flat, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. Mobility wise, this is where it gets really interesting. You have 6 how many is this? The charges, jet boosters, numbers, and duration. Okay, we have 6 boosters. No, this is the charges. We have 6 charges, and we have 10 seconds per charge. So that's 3 more charges than on the tier 8. It weighs 65 tons, so it's not going to be ramped into oblivion, but it's also not like one of the heaviest tanks out there. The engine power is capped at 800, but with boosters is at 2000, so that's going to be quite impressive. You can see 31.66 horsepower per ton with the boosters and 53 kph when the boosters are enabled. Without the boosters, it's only 35 kph. So I think what you could do here is, if you do have like bounty equipment or improved equipment, you could go with a bounty turbocharger, which would make this tank, I think, a bit more playable in the current meta. Also with that armor, you'd be at 40 kph, and I think it wouldn't be that bad. So yeah, quite interesting. Quite interesting. It only has, I think it doesn't have 400 meters space view range. It shouldn't. I would be really surprised. It has 390 meters space view range, which is still quite good for a Chinese tank. But to be fair, Chinese tanks actually have way better view range than we think of. I always thought that Chinese heavy tanks or Chinese vehicles in general had bad view range. But either way, we're going to take this puppy out. we're just gonna go with a very standard configuration, and we're gonna go with a gun rammer. We're going to add the orderly ammo rack as well, because we certainly want to decrease the reload time. We're going to improve the DPM. DPM is quite, well, it's okay for tier 10 heavy tank, 2,921. You can live with that. We're going to try this vehicle out with a turbo just to see what happens. And I think finally, how about we take a vertical stabilizer, even though I'm not sure how bad the dispersion is actually when we're turning the vehicle. You know what? We're not going to take the vertical stabilizer in the first game. We're just going to go with vents, and we're going to see what will happen when we play the vehicle, because it could be that in the end we don't need the vertical stabilizer as much. Maybe the dispersion values are quite good, but we don't really know that. So let's just take a quick look. Well, as imagined, everyone is trying out the BZ75, so it's going to be a bit difficult to really grasp or show what the vehicle is capable of, because these lobbies are just going to be filled with BZ76, 75 vehicles, and I guess we just have to see what this tank is capable of against other BZ75s. But keep in mind, this could be very well the first day after the patch launches, because usually when World of Tanks launches a patch and there's a new tank coming out, it's exactly like this. Like, it's just mayhem. So the dispersion values actually look okay if you turn around your turret, but it's fairly slow in turning. So let's, you know what, give us a boost. I think they forgot to add the boost effect, but it's incredible how fast the tank is. Like, did you see how quickly we just accelerated to top speed of 51, 50, or 53 kph right there? That was a bit scary. So we have 6 charges. Every single charge lasts about 10 seconds, or exactly 10 seconds, and well, that was pretty rapid. 6 charges, that's a lot. I thought that the, oh, sorry about that. I thought the 3 charges was the limit. Okay, there we have one. I'm not even sure if the 258 millimeters of penetration is going to suffice against this tank. Probably on the lower plate. So let's see. Okay. The gun feels snappy. It actually feels quite responsive. It feels quite accurate as well. That's not something I expected. And the reload time is now at 13 seconds. So yeah, that's a bit concerning. I'm not entirely sure how to feel about that, but I didn't expect the dispersion values to be that good when we're driving this tank. Like, look at the reticle. The reticle is actually quite it's quite small considering the caliber of the gun. Now, okay, I have played the 60 TP. I've played all of the other vehicles, but they are usually slow, right? They usually do not have the mobility to get you from one position to the other very fast. And this is like another vehicle that has that ability. Oh no. Yeah, this is a test server, so you kind of have to get used to it, that people will ram you and push you all over the place. But yeah, that was a unfortunate situation there. I want to see what the high explosive shell does. I want to see what the high explosive shell does. Okay, so he actually went right through that weak spot. And he went through our lower plate, but yeah, I was just standing out in the middle. Let me see that heat shell. Let's see what that heat shell is capable of doing. Well, if Wargaming, if World of Tanks is going to be getting any more boring, I think they have managed to do it with this patch. Because everyone will just be, like, sitting in a hull down position, and it's going to be like a really boring snooze fest. But at the same time, you know, if you're using the boosters, you're going to be able to push into positions that you prior were not able to do so. So it's going to be interesting in some sense, but at the same time, it might also be like a really frustrating experience. As you can see, we're in a really awkward position right now, where we're just kind of trying to defend the other flank. So we just spotted the K91. He's in the middle. Somebody's playing the the old Chinese heavy tank. Now, 8 degrees of gun depression. I'm not sure if you have 8 degrees of gun depression over the side of the vehicle, but I kind of doubt it. It's actually, I think it could be 8 degrees of gun depression over the side. Not looking too bad. But 8 degrees, yeah, that's not going to be, that's not 10 degrees. Okay, yeah, obviously going to be really exposed here. Oof. So, lower plate is going to be the obvious weak spot for the tank. And it looks like the lower plate is actually easily penetratable if you're using the APCR shells from the Foch. But yeah. Kind of a boring experience so far because I didn't really get to fire my gun all that much, and it was just kind of a cluster fest. Everyone was sitting on top of each other. But yeah, it's probably gonna get better. There's like the one style. We're gonna try out again afterwards, but first let's take a quick look at the tier 9, and we can probably equip the tier 9 as well. Okay, so first things to take away from the BZ-75 is that the gun is actually quite accurate. So I didn't expect the gun to be that accurate, but keep in mind, I'm using good crew, I'm using consumables as well, and that could have an impact on the vehicle itself. So let's take a quick look at the tier 9. Is it already the fully equipped tier 9? The turret is completely different from the tier 10. It's a very different kind of design philosophy, and it's a very different kind of vehicle type. Also a different hull. You don't have as many boosters as the tier 10 has. So yeah, let's just add a crew member, or all of the crew members real quick onto the vehicle. So we have 100% crew. The gun is quite similar though, except for the caliber. In terms of the penetration, you're, well, 10 millimeters off the 258 you have on the 152 millimeter howitzer gun that the BZ-75 has. Other than that, the heat shells are actually quite similar. You don't have the same penetration with the high explosive shells, but you do have the 315 millimeters of penetration on the heat shells, so that's actually not too bad. We're gonna go with the food as well here on this vehicle. So let's take a quick look. So the average damage is 530 because it's a 130 millimeter gun. As we already mentioned, 1000 meters, 1050 meters per second shell velocity on the AP shell, 248 penetration on the AP shell, 315 on the heat shell with 930 meters per second shell velocity. And the high explosive shell only has 65 millimeters of penetration, but 850 meters per second shell velocity. So yeah, reload time is also quite long, and the gun is like enormous. Look at the gun. The gun is basically, it's longer than the tank. if you would put the gun behind the tank or on top of the vehicle, it would be as long as the vehicle itself. Gun traverse is also quite bad, so that's kind of a reoccurring theme. Gun depression is also 8 degrees instead of the 10 degrees I remember. 20 degrees of gun elevation. Aim time and dispersion are also okay. They are not in like the worst territory. It's kind of same. It's kind of similar to the tier 10. So like there are quite a few common themes. The hull armor is 120 millimeters at the front. The lower plate looks a lot like the WZ 100 and what was it? The 111 looks really similar to it. So it's going to be a proper weak spot. I think 110 on the side, so that's quite a lot of armor on the side. You also have these side skirts right there, 60 at the back, 280 on the turret. Now that's quite interesting because the turret is quite thick, but it's also very flat. Now if you're using heat, it does have a bit of angling to it, but I think heat might just be able to go right through the cheeks of the turret, especially if it's a Yaguru just waiting around the corner or something with a lot of heat pen. It does have a cupola, but it's fairly small and very difficult to hit, I presume, at least. 130 on the side, but it's very thin on the side, and 70 on the back. Mobility-wise, it only has 5 charges, not 6, but it's kind of the same story. The mobility is identical to the tier 10, like in almost every regard. It almost weighs as much as well, so Wargaming hasn't really gone like way out of depth to like, you know, get these vehicles all really like balanced. It just seems that every single tank is kind of similar so far. At least the tier 9 is similar to the tier 10, which also means that if you play the tier 10, it's not going to be that much of a change from playing the tier 9. But you know what? We're going to jump back into the tier 10. We're just going to try it out and see if we can get some more gameplay in it, because I either way have to make a little bit of a preview later on, and I can't do that if I just play like absolute trash. It's going to be really difficult because nobody really will care about the vehicle. Okay, so we're playing on Live Oaks, or North America, and this is actually quite an interesting map for this vehicle because it's a very one-sided map. Most of the times, players just kind of rush the tracks, and if you have enough vehicles going down to the tracks, you're just going to be able to push through, and I think we're going to do the same thing here. What is really interesting is actually the turn time or the track traverse for the tracks itself. It actually turns quite quickly, and that's quite interesting to see. Other than that, look at the boost. Like, this booster is just insane. We're now reaching 58 kph, and I'm not really sure if I like that. It's gonna make games even faster. It's just going to make games like finish so much faster than than before, and I think I'm not really sure if that is a good thing or a bad thing, but let's be honest, it's probably a bad thing because games now only last about games last like 5 minutes if you get lucky. So I'm not really seeing like a benefit to having this tank or this line in the game as well, because it's going to make things so much faster. I'm not sure. Maybe we just need bigger maps. Bigger maps could be the solution to like a lack of decent games. Oh. Yeah, we can't hit him. He's toast either way. I'm just going to boost over the bridge because I have the ability to do so. And it looks like the entire enemy team just went into the city, which is quite interesting because usually nobody goes into the city, especially when you have a little bit of gun depression and when you're fast. I expected a lot more resistance over here, and nobody went here. So that's kind of interesting to see. But we've already used up all of our charges, so that's going to be a bit of a problem. Because now, we probably have to head back to the base, because we have a whole bunch of vehicles here. And I don't think anyone is interested in winning the game or, you know, capping, because it's all about trying out these vehicles. And can only try them out in combat. So the aim time, well, it's like 2.36 seconds. I think that's quite okay. It's quite fine. I think you can work with that. The dispersion of 0.36 could be better. I mean, you could definitely improve upon that. And now it's just really, I'm not sure. Let's see what this tank is capable of doing at like distance. Like, what is really interesting is the shell velocity. When you shoot and the shell almost instantaneously like arrives, like just a point second. Look at that, how quickly the shell arrives. That's crazy. Like, you know, the side of this tank, if you're able to just even use this as a little bit of a sniper, well, that's seems to be a bit of a problem to me. So that's the lower plate right there. The lower plate, at least on the indicator, looked very, very penetrable. And having like 8 degrees of gun depression, it's certainly not like the most amount of gun depression that is in the game, but it's good enough for, I think, a majority of the situation. Like most situations, you're going to be able to use that 8 degrees, and it's going to be fine. I think it's certainly like the gun, like 8 degrees is what you should have nowadays in World of Tanks. Okay. Penned the mouse. 15 kph in reverse is not that great. But now it's all about seeing what the armor can do, and look at that. Okay, so they weren't able to find my lower plate, but they were able to find my gun and my turret. And it looks like the turret was able to withstand quite a beating right there from the Object 705 and other tanks as well. So yeah, it's basically a fast 60 TP with boosters, but with worse hull armor for sure. But with a really sturdy turret, unless you actually have like the a shot on the cupolas. If you hit the cupolas, I'm pretty sure you can actually pen them. So what we're going to be doing here is, like, we've made a mistake. We used all of our boosters, and now we have to actually dash. And we're slow tank. Even with the turbo, we are quite slow. We're quite sluggish because the power to weight ratio is just not very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the dip here and just fight for our last few moments in this match. Let's see if we can hit that lower plate. Yeah, beautiful. Hit the 705A's lower plate. We're gonna switch to, oh no, I should have waited. I forgot to wait. Should have switched over to a heat shell just to see what it's capable of doing with a 705's upper plate or side. But the reload time is actually not too bad. It's actually quite fine if you have like all of the things on it. Wow, I put it right into the dirt. Well, now it's going to be really awkward. Okay, so the upper plate... Okay, I got hammer. Well, finish the game off quickly. Yeah. So the upper plate is actually quite sturdy as well. We bounced a bit of damage there, but we were quite far away, and it's not like we were in constant close quarter fighting. But the ammo wreck right there, that's the second game and I get ammo wrecked. I'm not sure if that is a good sign or a bad sign. So yeah, the turbo, I'm not really sure about the turbo. Now if you can like save up the jet boosters, I think you don't have to rely too much on the turbo, but if you have a on turbo on this vehicle, it could make it more bearable. Like we can go with a mobility slot. We're just going to unlock all of the field modifications real quick, just so we actually have some things unlocked on the vehicle. Then we can see what the tank is like once fully upgraded. So what about we actually, like, we have two choices. We can go with even more DPM, for example, right here. We switch over and we get like the specialization slot for the gun rammer. And by that way, we're now at 12.8 seconds reload time. So that's really nice. 3,000 damage per minute. Like, that's pretty damn good to have. The traverse speed is already quite good, but we could improve the mobility by having more maintenance speed, or just maintaining the speed. We're going to decrease the dispersion values as well, so we have better accuracy. And right here we can improve the... You know what? We're going to improve the view range of the vehicle. And we can actually improve the mobility as well. Plus 5% to hull traverse, plus 2 kph to forward speed. Okay, you know what? We're going to take it. Now the vehicle's at 41 kph, top speed. And then finally, we can improve the suspension time, or we can improve the gun traverse time. And I think I'm going to go with the gun traverse, just so that we are able to turn our turret faster. Because the turret is quite large, it's a very big target, and if somebody shoots you from the side, it's just going to go right through there, and I don't think you're going to be able to survive a lot of shots. But if we would have went for the mobility slot, we would have been like 42 kph now. The power to weight ratio would have been lifted probably closer to the 14 horsepower per ton area, so that's, well, it's going to be faster. Yeah, I think this is a loadout that we could run. We don't need a secondary ammunition. Okay. Muravanka, a map that I think has been changed in this patch, because they did overwork some of the areas, and it's on the 1-2 line. I think that's where the most changes have happened. And we're just going to see and try to push the 1-2 line. Even though I think I would have liked to go into the forest, but... Look at us go. It's so weird without, like, the boosters. Without the fire effect at the back. Hey Johnny, how are you doing? Oh yeah, they're going to be very meta. I think they're going to be really meta. I've tried out the tier 10 a couple of games now, and it's really, really good in terms of the gun. And mobility-wise, it's actually not too bad either. I think it's going to be really good in a hull-down position. Probably as well. Turret is quite sturdy if you can keep the, well, the cupolas hidden from the enemy. Other than that, this tank is going to be a really well-liked vehicle, I think, because it also has like 12.8 seconds reload time. with like the all of the consumables, and you do like 650 damage every 12.8 seconds, that's going to be quite annoying. Missed. But I think the cupola can actually be penetrated by standard rounds even. I was pinned by standard round, and I'm not sure if that was like... I was at first thinking, well, maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe the cupola is just, you know, it was just the right angle, he had a high roll. But it turns out, I think the cupola is not that thick, and that is a very welcome kind of change. And also, having the rocket boosters is quite nice, because it allows you to get into place. Oh no, I got set on fire. Oh no. I'm gonna burn out. Yeah. Well, okay. Turns out these rocket boosters can get you to a more advanced place, but at the same time, they will not like make you invisible or invincible when crossing terrain. So I just got like hit by a BZ-75 with high explosive anti-tank ammunition, and he just tore my engine up. Okay, so it is a Chinese tank, and I'm pretty sure Chinese tanks have like the worst like ratio when it comes to engine fires. They probably have the most engine fires of all tanks. Chinese tanks just always kind of burn, and yeah, I guess the BZ-75. Let's check the engine real quick. What the chance of fire is on the BZ-75. Wow, that kind of just sucks. It just set me on fire. That's 12%. Okay, so it's just like on every other tank in the game. Set me on fire, immediately my game was over. But I think it's a pretty good time to try out the tier 9. See if we can actually get into some games with the tier 9. And see if the tier 9 is actually anything close to the tier 10. So I'm just going to get like the same crew skills that I had on my tier 10. Just gonna go with 3 again. We're gonna improve the view range, just so that we don't have to be completely blind in case somebody is spotting us from afar. But I think it's not going to be like that in this test server. I think it's just going to be pretty straightforward. A lot of BZs rushing into one another and like doing the max amount of damage that they can do. Let's get Deadeye as well. That's going to be quite nice to have. And move on to the next. Off-road driving is always good. Maybe preventive maintenance is worth it on these tanks. Could be. Smooth ride as well. But so far, the dispersion values for ground resistances are actually, like, the dispersion values are quite good. Like, the tank feels, the tier 10 feels really snappy when you turn your tank on and your turret. And I think the tier 9 is going to be probably the same kind of category when you play that. I think it's going to be pretty similar to it. Maybe also have like firefighting on these vehicles, just to be sure, just to be safe. But we're also just going to go with gun rammer. We're going to go with vents, and let's see what the turbocharger does with this tank. It could be quite difficult to find a game at tier 9 because most of the players are playing tier 10. But if you're playing at tier 9 right now, you probably have the highest chances of getting into a tier 10 match and to play at least, while most of the other vehicles at tier 8 and tier 7 well, the tier 8 and tier 7 are not going to be played by a lot of players, so it's just going to be the BZ75 and probably the BZ68 that are going to be like enjoyed by the players on the test server. I'm just gonna give it like 2-3 minutes. If that doesn't work, we're just going to go into the tier 10 matchup again. And we're gonna try to have some more games in the BZ75. Well, I think I have to disappoint you a bit. They are very good in hull down, but they, at least the tier 10, appears to have some weak spots that could make the vehicle vulnerable to incoming fire and also could force it to be a bit more cautious so that you don't have like a 60 TP fighting you on a ridgeline or a Kranwagen. I think it doesn't seem to be like that, but it's still fairly competent on a ridgeline, and I think that might be a pretty nice thing to have. A tank that is decent on a ridgeline but isn't like specialized on ridgeline fighting. I think this line could be quite interesting, especially because of the boosters, right? And it also has some armor, but it's like not completely broken in the sense that it's completely armored all over the place. I'm not sure if we're going to find a tier 9 match right now, and I don't want to wait around for tier 9 matches to happen, so I'm just going to jump into a tier 10 match. What I did notice is that you do not carry like a lot of shells. We can take a quick look at how many shells you carry, but in total it's 30 rounds. So 30 rounds, 12 seconds, 12.8 second reload time. You can actually do fire a lot of rounds in a very short amount of time. So yeah, maybe you just have to be a bit more cautious with, you know, firing all of the rounds. But 30 rounds, it's still plenty, I think. I remember the T-54 prototype having like 30 rounds back then, and that was really difficult because you also had like really low alpha damage. But yeah, I think this is certainly going to be a tank that will be enjoyed by a lot of players, because the ones who like to play big guns, they're going to be on this tank. The players who like to have like quite a bit of turret armor, they're going to be enjoying this tank, but they're going to be crying about the cupola up there. We are going to have medium tank players who play this tank because it has the boosters, and having boosters is kind of a cool thing to be able to boost around and drive around quickly. One thing I did notice is if you use the booster, your dispersion values are actually quite horrible. As you can see, I enable my boosters, and the circle extends quite aggressively. But what is really cool about this tank is the shell velocity. Having 1,150 meters per second shell velocity means that this tank is really good at sniping at longer distances, and even 90 millimeters of penetration on the on the high explosive shell is not too bad, and I think you can work with that. So let's see. Like, look at that. We click and the round is already there. So that's something that heavy tanks usually don't have unless they're all firing APCR. And you have both AP and heat. I mean, look at this. The accuracy might not be the best, but the ability to do a lot of damage, well, that's certainly there. And I think that's going to be one of the key things that people will want in heavy tanks. So it's going to be a bit of a problematic vehicle in the end, because it does a lot of things quite nicely, but it's not like super overpowered, but it is kind of powerful in the sense that it's capable of doing like all of the things that other vehicles were specifically designed for. And that is a little bit of the worry for me, because players are just always going to be going for the vehicle that has like all of the attributes, and then they're not going to be playing some of the vehicles that, you know, do not have those attributes, or are kind of meant to be played in a very specific way. I don't think it's going to make everyone quit playing like certain tanks, but I could imagine that more players will be playing the BZ. And look at that, like the shell velocity is great. The shell was instantly there, and we immediately managed to penetrate the Badger from the side. But it's not like you just aim at a tank and it's going to be a penetration. It's still like the 258 millimeters of penetration that we have on the AP shell that we know from other vehicles, other tier 10s, and the heat shells, well, they have 319 millimeters of penetration, but I think it's in the it's definitely in the realm of okay. It's fine, I guess. It's not the highest penning heat shell in the game, and I think that's quite okay. Yeah, I think like the E5 is a pretty good example. The E5, it took them quite a long time to balance the tank correctly, but I think the E5 is now in a very good place, and the E5 is able to do what it's supposed to be doing, and that is be a decent heavy tank in kind of any scenario. I'm not sure where that one hit, but went somewhere. And I think this tank, at least armor-wise, kind of goes into similar territories that the E5 goes into. It's certainly no chieftain. Like, you don't have to worry about having to snipe cupolas right there with heat shells to be able to go through the tank. But, you know, it's still quite capable if you can actually... Oh no, he just turned in the time I aimed at him. You know what, I'm just... I'm not gonna be sticking around here, I don't care. You do you. I'm gonna rush down here. Yeah. I mean, the tank itself, like, you still have 200 millimeters of hull armor at the front. Don't get me wrong, like, the 200 millimeters of hull armor at the front is still going to be quite competitive and be able to bounce quite a few shots. Especially tier 8s are going to have a really hard time playing against this tank. Now, it's just tier 10s, right? But this tank is going to be meeting tier 8 tanks and tier 9 vehicles. And tier 8 tanks and tier 9 vehicles facing this tank are going to have a hard time. I can say that much already. Because, you know, it's capable of fighting, you know, it's capable of doing a lot of damage. It has gun depression. The dispersion values are quite alright. They're quite good, to be fair. And, you know, the gun is really competitive. Yeah, I think as a lower tier vehicle, you're gonna have a really bad time. But isn't that what is kind of isn't that the truth, the global truth for everyone who is in a lower tier vehicle? You know, it's kind of horrible for everyone who is tier 8. Doesn't matter if it's an E100 or a BZ75. People will just kind of take a dump on you, and you're not going to be able to really return the favor most of the time. But for speaking of a tier 10 vehicle, from a tier 10 player's perspective, the tank itself is quite good, but it doesn't seem to be overpowered. Also, the turret seems to be like pennable, and I think that's the one thing I always wanted, and I think I'm fine with that. Hey, welcome. Hello, Bot Arar. How you doing? I'm always kind of checking your channel out just to see how you're doing, but I still don't speak any Czech, unfortunately. But have you tried out the new line, the new Chinese heavy tank line? Because I'm pretty sure the Czech players are going to be really interested in news for this vehicle. I'm gonna try out the 90mm high explosive shell. I'm gonna see what I can do against a Manticore or a EBR. Well, hiding here. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. I've been busy. I've not been able to make that many World of Tanks videos, but I've been able to make some make some Simpsons thumbnails, and I'm having a lot of fun with the Simpsons thumbnails. But yeah, not doing much than just working right now. Oh yeah, yeah, I mean it just came out, and I had the test server installed, the super test, and I just wanted to see what the tanks are like. And I mean, having the boosters is like a lot of fun. I might just get Death Starred here by the FV4005 because I'm driving in open field, but I just barely survive right there. Like, I have to be honest, the boosting mechanism is really fun. Also, this tank is a lot more like it's a lot more maneuverable with the boosters than the BZ 176 is. Okay, I say that and I drive immediately into a wall. Yeah, it's like okay, look at this. We go 50 kph, 54, 55, like in a really short time. If you go downhill, you might reach like almost, I'm not sure, I've never went downhill, might be 70 kph. But yeah, it's like really crazy. You can just camp, sit back at the red line and wait all game long, and then you can just kind of, you know, press the X button and be the first one there in combat. Look at that. It's oh no, the EBR just jumped on an E3. Okay, either way, we're gonna finish off this EBR, this E3. Yeah, you have 6 charges. These, well, 6 charges is a lot, right? Especially since the maps aren't that large. If the maps would be larger, I think 6 charges would be, I think, pretty nice to have. But since the map is like really small, having 6 charges allows you to just kind of run around the map. And I mean, I didn't really use my charges in the way that I maybe should have used them. Maybe I should have saved some of them to run away if we have to fight here. But what I can just do here is I can go into this position here, you know, I can rush over this field, be like top speed, and I can just go here and snipe anything from behind with 8 degrees of gun depression, which kind of works most of the time. Okay, yeah, I can't really touch an E100 from here. But you know what? We can try to use this. Yeah, it's a pretty insane vehicle so far. And I think it might be used. It will be a meta tank, I think. It's going to be a pretty crazy meta tank. And I think people will be using these tank in Clan Wars and basically all over World of Tanks. If there's like a tournament, I think people will be using this. Imagine the mobility of these vehicles, the speed, and having this in Clan Wars, and you're rushing like mines with like 10 of them. That's that's like really crazy. And also you can penetrate the cupola with standard and heat shells as well. So it's actually kind of balanced in some sense. Yeah, like I already said that the game time is going to be so short for basically, you know, the game time is going to be cut even shorter in the near future. Players will be running around with, I don't know, like 2 minutes on average. What kind of a game time are you expecting with these tanks? Wargaming have to do something about the maps um, if they wanna run like vehicles such as this with this kind of mechanic. Yeah, the standard pen on the AP is 258, so it's the same as the E5, but the shell velocity is really good. Like, take a look at the shell velocity. I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna show you the shell velocity. I'm not sure if I can actually shoot the E100, but look at the shell velocity here. Like, this is, it immediately appears right there. It's 1,150 meters per second. That's what, like, some high-tier medium tanks used to have for their APCR shells. And that's, like, really crazy. The shell velocity on the heat shell is not that great. It's 950 meters per second, but still doable. And you have 319 millimeters of penetration. And you also have 90 millimeters of penetration with the high explosive shell, which is really great if you have, like, lightly armored tanks, and you can do like 840 damage with the high explosive shell. So that's the crazy part. But what is really interesting is that Wargaming decided to go against the big howitzer guns, which do like the high explosive damage, and they kind of kicked them out of the rotation, and they are not in the test server right now. Like, okay, yeah. It's 21 HP, we can just do that. Like, having bigger maps would probably be a nice kind of change, but it also means that some tanks that are slower are going to have, well, they're going to have a bit more of a problem of being able to reaching the fighting, right? But I'm not sure. If we have bigger maps, are there just going to be more players camping at the back? You know? Like, there are already a lot of tank destroyer players out there, and I think we might just have a lot of players camping at the back. There's one thing I want to try out real quick, and just because we have a lot of these new tanks, I want to see what the FV 215B 183 can do against these things. If there is a chance to actually penetrate them through the cupola with Hesh, I want to see if I can be the one who does that. Yeah, like capping in Assault in a Doom Turtle, you can forget about that. Like, way back when, I mean, the T95 was running around with like 12 kph or something like that, and you barely made it up the hill. The fight was already like happening all around you. I remember Pearl River. No, it was not Pearl River, it was Dragon's Ridge. I'm not sure if anyone remembers that map. Dragon's Ridge, and I was climbing to the top with my T95. I didn't manage to get up there. My team was already dead, and everyone else was circling around me and just being vultures. But it was kind of crazy. Mobility has changed so much in the recent years. Hey, good luck. Good luck on your C1 exam. I know you can do it. Have a nice Christmas period. Thanks for checking by. Keep up your content. Even though I don't understand Czech, I like to zap in every once in a while, and it's quite interesting to see, like, how there are so many World of Tanks YouTubers who are doing their own thing. It's really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more content. And good luck on the C1 exam. Yeah, it's okay. To be fair, it's always difficult to have balance in World of Tanks. Balance in World of Tanks is just it's almost. To be fair, World of Tanks was never balanced, right? Oh no, what a horrible shot. Oh, I fired way too soon. World of Tanks was never balanced as a game itself. Like, we used to play with a M4 against a mouse. So I think it's probably a lot more balanced right now than it has ever been before, if that makes any sense. But, like, at the same time, like, they have put a lot of resources into the maps. But I have the feeling that we need to have some more fresher ideas. I wouldn't be against the fact if they would actually like introduce more more maps that are different and that aren't like extremely balanced, but where they try to do some different things. I mean, -5 matchmaking back then with. I remember a game with 15, like with 13 artillery pieces. Like, that was crazy. There were like so many arties running around back then. And it was just the way the game kind of worked. But yeah, we managed to one-shot a BZ. But I think this game is almost over and we're just going to get absolutely annihilated by anything that just spots us. This is such a joke. I love this tank. I still love it. I don't care. I know that everyone is playing the FV4005, but I will always stick to this bad boy because it's just so hilarious to shoot tanks. Okay, yeah, I should have known that. That was not a very good idea. Yeah, -5 matchmaking back in the days. That was just madness. World of Tanks has come a long way. World of Tanks has introduced a lot of things that are very good. World of Tanks has kind of put a lot of things into the game that are really bad. Thing that I realized is Wargaming has become really cautious with their updates. Wargaming has become really, really cautious because they are now like adding things into the game, and oh no, I hit his gun! It would have been a perfect hit on the TVP. Well, either way, we're about to get like rammed in the ass by something else. Yeah. They have kind of lost their sense of adventure or their experimental kind of phase. Because I remember when Wargaming was trying out crazy things. Not everything worked. A lot of the things were, well, kind of half-baked and sometimes not even well done. But I really appreciated that they always wanted to go a different route and try out new things. But sadly, to be fair, yeah, they're trying to be really safe in the last couple of years. They go down the route of very powerful premium tanks, vehicles that are powerful. They dumb down the game all the time. They make everything like easier, more accessible, and I think that's nice that the game is more accessible, right? But at the same time, they're really dumbing things down, and it's like, you know, sometimes if you're playing a game and you're not good at the game, well, you learn, and if you still don't get better, it's just, you're not going to be better at the game, you're not going to be good at the game. And I think we don't have to cater to, you know, to all of the players. We don't have to like cater to the worst players, we don't have to cater to the best players. That's just a fact of life, that some players are better, some players are worse, right? I'm not the best player, I'm not with the best players, I kind of have the feeling I've lost some skills over the last couple of years. But generally, I would have liked to see more, like, some things, some, you know, some experiments. Where, like, even, it doesn't matter if you're a good or a bad player. If you're trying things out and it works, or if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You're just having fun. And, yeah, that would be great. Oh yeah, I actually have a game on the T50-2. I'm not sure if I ever uploaded it, but I remember that it was incredibly hard to actually hit a scout back then, because scouts were moving very erratically, and It didn't really make sense sometimes, their movement, because it was like a tick rate. It's like the tick rate was wrong, just as you say. And it's like really weird because scouts just they were just going all around the map, like zooming past everyone, and the T-50-2 was like the major zoomer, like the fastest tank. Like, it's crazy how far we've gotten. Like, nowadays, even the EBR 105, with its 110 kph, or even more than that, or less, I'm not entirely sure, you can actually hit it if you aim well enough. But imagine an EBR 105 back in the days. It would have been a horror. It would have been the worst thing ever in World of Tanks. They also changed this map. Now we have like a way where we can actually fight back, and we have like a little bit of a ridge line here, so that's quite nice. Oh yeah, that's much better. But still, I have to be honest, the spotting the spotting mechanics in World of Tanks are still a bit weird. Okay, look at us. Ah, no, we weren't able to pet him. He does have like 150 millimeters of hull armor on the side. No, he bounces. Why did he bounce? Okay, he bounced heat on our on the weak spot right there, and we have to go back because everyone just kind of pushed right through the middle there. Oh yeah, I have to be honest, I think a lot of my reviews of tanks, I know what you mean. I have the feeling a lot of my reviews on vehicles that I play are probably complete bullshit. Okay, how do I bounce that? I think a lot of my reviews are complete bullshit because I'm just basically... Oh, I have to eat the shell. Because I'm just basically playing tanks that are not very competitive. I love playing tanks that are just kind of wacky and weird, and you know, they have something special about them, and I think... Ah, no, I can't bounce that. And I think it's like so sad to see a lot of players who just want to play like the best tanks all the time. Like, where they want to play the meta tanks, where they want to, you know, be the most competitive. I understand the sense that you want to be the best, that you want to have the best chances of winning, but it's so much more fun to be like a little bit of a special player who just tries things out for fun, and who has like weird combinations that are completely wacky and weird. Yeah, I've had quite a few vehicles that I really like and a lot of players hate. Like, there are so many tanks that players hate that I really, really enjoy. Yeah, sadly, in the end, a lot of players want to play like they want to play the best. They want to be competitive, and I understand the game is kind of competitive, and you don't want to feel like you're, you know, behind someone, or you're less able to achieve a victory. That was a very badly aimed shot right there. And this is a very badly... Oh, this is a very bad situation. Oh no! How did he get me? Oh yeah, obviously because there was like a little bit of a place where you could shoot right through. Well, our team still has the majority of HP, so they should be able to win this. It doesn't even matter, it's a test server. Nobody really cares if we win or we lose. We just want to see what this tank is capable of, and I think it's capable of a lot of things, and it's quite competitive, but it's not like borderline broken that you cannot penetrate the tank, even with standard shells, unless you hit like if you shoot that part on the turret right there, you're not going to be able to go through it unless he's like showing you the wrong side or something like that. Why does everyone hate the AMX 30 and the 30B? I love my 30B and I love my AMX 30. I know that they don't have the accuracy of the Leopard Prototype A, but these tanks are still, like, they're really enjoyable. They're fast. They have great camo values. They're able to spot for themselves. They are historical vehicles, right? The AMX line is like one of the most exported French tanks ever. Like the AMX 13 and the AMX 30B as well. Or the 30 series. And, you know, I was so confused when Wargaming took them out of the store or out of the game, because it turns out players actually dislike the AMX the AMX 30 line, and they don't like to play them. And I think it's really weird, because I always enjoyed my 30B, I always enjoyed my 30, and I'm really glad that I got these tanks before they were sunsetted or taken out of the game, because I would have had the feeling that I would have missed out on something that was actually quite entertaining. The DPM is great. I mean, they don't have the best accuracy, but they have incredible DPM. And I think nowadays in World of Tanks, there are so many ways to improve your accuracy. There are so many ways to improve every single characteristic or every single statistic. You just have to have the right equipment. And why the hell not experiment a little bit? The only thing that is like the only thing that keeps you like from experimenting is the cost of gold and the cost of buying the equipment. But if you have like a little bit of gold lying around, if you have the mounting tickets or something like that, you can still always just experiment. And that's what I like to do. That's what I did with the Kunze. I was trying out different combinations, and I had a Kunze that was driving around with like 73 kph that was running like the Grousers and the turbo, and it was a horrible tank in terms of combat efficiency, but it was a really great tank in terms of speed. I was so fast with my Kunze, and it was like really special in that sense, because it was my little version of the Kunze that I tried out. Now, I know, like, when I make reviews, I usually always double check my equipment, because, to be honest, like, it's quite embarrassing. My equipment sometimes is horrible. My choices are worse than those of Quickie Babies. And, you know, Quickie Babies, like, choices in terms of equipment is quite horrible if you ask anyone who wants to play very effectively. But, like, I always do look into different portals to see what exactly is the equipment choice that players use, and then I kind of try to see if I can add it up together with what I'm kind of thinking about. To be fair, I think this tank, it has decent reload time now. Like, this is all great. I'm gonna take away the turbocharger, and we're gonna see what this tank is like with additional Grousers when it turns faster and it is able to keep up higher speeds. Now, that's going to be a very interesting thing, because without the turbo, it's going to be slower, but with the Grousers, it might just be faster when using the boost, right? So it might just be able to have even higher boost speeds. But yeah. Yeah, the funny thing is, I always thought of the AMX 30 line as a line that actually is capable of bouncing shots as well. You know, the AMX 30 line, for me personally, was always a tank line that is capable of, like, surviving a couple of random hits. That's usually something you don't see with a Leopard prototype or with a Leopard 1, because nobody ever bounces shit in those tanks. Like, if you bounce something on the Leopard, well, you can basically just, you can go play lottery, like, you can go play the lottery, because it's so incredibly difficult to bounce anything on the Leo, but it does happen occasionally. But with the AMX 30, you have, like, enough armor to not constantly get penned with high explosive, but not enough armor to be reliable enough to play like the Ridgelines and be really aggressive. but you have enough that when you pull back, somebody shoots you. The angling is just right that they're not able to really pen you. Like, do you understand what I mean? It's like really weird. It has enough armor to survive some things, but you cannot guarantee the survival aspect. It's just, it happens sometimes, right? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Can't even say I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, Z. We have a very first contestant who rushes the hill. Okay, the second tank who gets ammo racked next to us. And that BZ is in a very good position right now. Oh, we actually have a BZ who is like up there. Let's do it. I'm ready to tango. Is he rushing down again? Oh, he's rushing down. Oh, no! You can do it. Get yourself into safety. No! That fucking wreckage actually blocked some of my shots. Okay, we have to deal with that BZ. There's a... No, chill. There's a FV4005 over there. Wait, is he boosting? No, he's not boosting. I'm trying to block you. No! Why are you running away? Oh, God. I got ammo wrecked again. Okay, I have the feeling this tank has a bit of an issue with the ammo rack. I saw somebody get ammo wrecked over there. I got ammo wrecked twice now. And I'm not sure if... Like, I'm not sure where's the ammo located on this tank. Is the ammo, like, stored here? I really like it that I can like read German because somebody called us all retarded and we're playing on the test server, so yeah, you can't expect anything happening on the test server other than complete mayhem. I'm not sure what he was expecting on the test server, but I don't think that anyone is expecting like the best plays on the test server. It's quite difficult to actually have like decent games on the test server because everyone is just doing really weird things. Oh yeah. Like, equipment is always a very interesting kind of choice because it shows you everyone values different things, right? Everyone kind of tries out different things, and some people, like, they really value camouflage, for example, and they really sit back, like light tanks or tank destroyers that have like 4 camo nets. They have binoculars on them as well, and they have like that what is the other one? The smoke screen thing that allows you to also have like 8% better camouflage rating. I've seen players like run around completely in stealth. I've seen players who are all about like doing the max amount of damage and they just go for everything on the gun. That's how I used to go back in the days. But yeah, it's quite different, and it's quite a nice thing to see that there's option. And I think Wargaming did a decent job with the equipment 2.0. I think that is now quite interesting, and it allows you a lot of ways to actually try out things in the game. But they should stay the hell away from Crew 2.0. Just don't bring us Crew 2.0 unless it's really good and it's not like a cash grab. If it's not a cash grab and it's really thought out, you know, I would take Crew 2.0. Why the hell not? Change is good, so change is bad. You know, you can't always have everything perfect, but change is still, I think, something that is inevitable in a game that lasts this long. And I think we have to embrace it sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to embrace change. I know of my personal life. I know enough of that. Yeah, turbo and everything. Why the hell not? Turbo is very fun. And turbo can make a lot of things better. yeah, that's if I would go to my medium tank lineup right now, you would only see turbo on all of my tanks, all of my medium tanks. There's always a turbo because I want to have the maximum speed, and I just want to have the maximum maneuverability that I can have, and that works with my turbo. Doesn't work with other equipment pieces, but sometimes, like if it's really bad, I actually do go for improved rotation mechanism, or even additional browsers when there are some medium tanks that actually have decent mobility, but they have like really bad turn rate on the tank or on the turret. That's where I sometimes go a different route. Well, to be fair, I rarely play tank destroyers. I rarely play tank destroyers. Like, it's probably after artillery pieces my most hated class. I hate playing tank destroyers because there are some tank destroyers that you have to play from the back line, and I just don't have the patience to wait. And there's some tank destroyers where you basically you have the armor, but you don't have the armor. You have the armor for all of the standard shells, but as soon as some idiot starts loading all of the heat, you're basically left there trying to angle your tank in a way that you just hope that somebody bounces. But you know, it's so frustrating. I think the only tank destroyer I like to play is the the FV215B183, because I can just one shoot things, and I have to be honest, I just always love to load HES shells and just shoot anything from the side and do like the max amount of damage. that's one of the tank destroyers I really like. One of the tank destroyers I have to free mark as well eventually, but that's an entire different topic. Like the vehicles I have to free mark, the videos I have to make, the yeah, there's so many things I have to do. The work I have to do, oh god, just never ends. Life is a constant grind, and World of Tanks is like a part of the grind as well. And then I'm also playing War Thunder, which is also a grind. So I'm basically just grinding my entire life away. Oh, look at that. Beautiful shot. Got the Udes. Almost got him one shot right there. Oh yeah, Turbo is a great like addition. I think players would have liked to see a Super Turbo where you have like 10 kph additional speed. I think that's what people expected when they first introduced like the bomb turbo. I expected like a crazy turbo, a turbo that like adds crazy amounts of speed, like maybe 8 or 10 kph. Okay, look at that. The cupola right there can be easily penetrated by the AP shell on this thing, but it could be because we're running like, because this is a very large caliber, we kind of can just overmatch it. That could be the case, but I don't think so. I think the cupola is actually a weak spot, and I think that is a pretty good design choice by Wargaming. Once I'm going to be praising them because it looks like we have a weak spot that we can deal with. But other than that, the tank is fairly combat efficient, and look at the shell velocity. Look at that shell velocity. 1,150 meters per second shell velocity. That's a thing of beauty right there. But now we have a bit of an awkward scenario where there's a BZ. Now the tank is not like the worst in terms of accuracy, but it's also not going to be able to win any accuracy awards. But I guess it's fine. But look at that, like 691 damage. That's pretty nasty if you ask me. Are they seriously capping like are they capping a game where we're playing, where we're trying out the vehicles? Oh boy. I have to go back. My people need me. Come on, we can't let them cap. What is this? We're not playing on the live server. Oh, but yeah, to get back to your point, sorry, I have to read the comments in a second because I just can't do both at the same time. Okay, I tracked them, didn't go through the tank. I also think your video idea of playing the least played tanks and trying them out and trying to free mark them or something like that sounds like a really, it would sound like a really cool like video idea, to be fair, because I mean, everyone wants to always see the best. Why does nobody give like any attention to the worst? How about we have like a little bit of respect to the worst tanks in the game? Because there's always players who like the worst tanks. They will come out of hiding once you actually make a video on it, and they come out of hiding and they start writing like a comment, and it's really fun because they're like, oh, I really like that tank too, but everyone hates it. So I'm keeping quiet on the tank itself. But yeah, great tank here. I think the BZ-75 is going to be a, well, it's going to be a fan favorite, I think, and I'm certainly going to be grinding it. I think I'm going to be logging in afterwards. I'm going to go buy my Type 58 back, and yeah, I'm just going to go get a couple of experience points to get to the tier 7 right here, the BZ-58, and then I'm going to go down the entire line. I still have to kind of give you the review for the American heavy tank line, the Yo line, because I started making videos on it, but I forgot to actually continue the reviews. But I still have that planned eventually. I still have a couple of videos planned, but I just have to have the time to make these videos, sadly. My favorite tank destroyers are the 183, the Tortoise, yes, the Badger. Okay, yeah, well, I have to say the tier 9 Tortoise, or Tortoise? Either way, however the British say that word, that's probably one of the the most fun tanks you can play at tier 9. Like, it's really good. A tank that I really liked as well. Then obviously T95, that can't miss. The E3, also a very good tank. The E4, kind of the ugly brother next to the E3, to be fair, in my opinion. But the E4 just has that turret, that turret, you know? But it's a really bad turret, but at least it's a turret. The Minotaur, okay, I've never played it. I don't have it unlocked yet, so probably still have to try that one out. The T30, that's a great choice. The Jagdtiger 88, you probably would be one of those players who buys like these fall boxes that Wargaming have released on the Asian server just to get the Jagdtiger prototype for tier 8. That's probably the most interesting vehicle out of the box there, because it's a stock Jagdtiger at tier 8, and that's, I think, where the Jagdtiger should be. The Jagdtiger with the stock 128mm gun should probably be the one tank that you face at tier 8, because it finally has some armor, the armor can do something, and you don't have to constantly be, you know, fighting those tier 9, tier 10 tanks. But yeah, Turtle 1, okay, I've never really played the Turtle 1 that exclusively, so I'm not that well versed in the Turtle 1, but I really like the 183. That's probably my favorite tank destroyer out of the bunch. Yeah, nobody ever expects a 183 right in the city. Nobody expects a 183 to actually bounce things. That's also what I noticed. Nobody expects the 183 to kind of bounce shots that are incoming, because it actually has some armor. The FV4005, when it gets spotted, it just gets blown to pieces. But not with the FV. The FV 183. That thing actually works with a little bit of armor. It's not going to bounce a lot, but it's going to bounce some shots. So, this video is now 2 hours long, and I actually never wanted to make it that long, and it's 10 p.m, and it's certainly time for me to eat something, because I've gotten home at about 8, started making this video, and now I'm kind of hungry. So, you know what, guys? I'm going to call it quits here. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys have seen what the tank is all about. We've played quite a few games in well, in the tier 10. We didn't have the best of games most of the time, but it's the test server, so none of them really count because everyone is just kind of going crazy for the new tanks. And it's quite competitive. It's probably going to be a tank that will have an impact on the meta. It has a really nice gun. It is flexible enough to use several different ammo types. The high explosive penetration is actually quite nice with 90 millimeters of penetration. You know, reload time is not too bad if you use like the rammer, if you use premium consumables. Dispersion is not too bad either. Aim time is decent as well. And it has enough survivability to be decent on the ridgeline without being completely overpowered, because it actually has 2 weak spots that you can actually penetrate this time around. So that's a very big plus. The hull armor is okay. It's quite thickly armored at the hull, but the lower plate is pretty weak, and I think you can certainly deal with it. So yeah, I think a tank that I'm looking forward to see it on the live server, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, well, hope you have a nice night. Thanks, Johnny, for being my constant chat partner. Hope you have a nice evening in the United Kingdom, and yeah, hopefully not too much snow, because we've had quite a lot of snow, and I've seen a video on the UK where there is a lot of snow as well. Seeing the United Kingdom with snow, that's something I haven't seen often, at least London I haven't seen with snow. But yeah, it's been a fun stream, and I see you guys on the next one. Until then, have a good one.